Hey everybody, Marvel Maniac coming to you guys with a comic book video. Today we'll be talking about the lore of Anti-Venom is a slightly different version of Venom. Now, this takes place in Earth 626, I believe, which is also known as Clintar. Earth 616 is the Earth that it takes place on. Now, it is still Eddie Brock, essentially. Not the same Eddie Brock as the Peter Parker Spider-Verse, but it is still the same thing. Same person, same name, you know. Now, the origins of it was when Eddie Brock was working at a company, working as a volunteer at the Feast Center. A doctor by the name of Martin Lee, ego of Mr. Negative, and founder, uses powers to cure Eddie's cancer, and in doing so, he accidentally infused the Venom symbiote into his bloodstream, which then latched onto his white blood cells, then causing him to gain, symbiotic powers. Now, his hybrid symbiote is then able to remove any disease from its host, any impurities, and then this symbiote is mindless. So unlike when the Venom symbiote took over and started controlling Spider-Man, started controlling Eddie Brock, so on and so forth, the host is now in complete control, which makes it a lot easier. And then eventually this symbiote was then used to cure the spider virus, which, is the whole Spider-Man virus, which then created Spider-Man and other spider beings. If you guys get into the comic books, you'll see that there are a lot more than just Spider-Man, Venom, Carnage, those type of characters that have the somewhat similar abilities. Now, going on to the powers and abilities, this symbiote does give off a lot of powers. It has superhuman strength, which it averages you about to lift 70 tons. At least under Brock, it allows him to lift 70 tons, equivalent of his 700 that he could lift. Now, thinking that 700 is definitely a huge amount for one human to lift. It is possible, even in the real world, it's just not something you commonly see. So 70 tons, on the other hand, he could just pick up vehicles with a frickin' finger and whip them. A vehicle weighs about a ton, about 1,000 pounds, so you can kind of see that's about like 70 cars, or like, I don't know, about 45 heavy-duty trucks. I'm not talking about semis. We got superhuman durability, which, makes him immune to a lot of stuff. He has the symbiote over his body is extremely thick, acts like a giant protective wall, and even blocks out things like, other superheroes' abilities, but then is also kind of negated by Dr. Negative's Dark Force powers, which eventually we'll get into Dr. Negative. I have yet to actually read about Dr. Negative, because I've never actually read the comic books, though I do research my history on Anti-Venom, because Anti-Venom is probably one of the most badass characters. Now, anyways, continuing on, we have an accelerated healing factor, which is very basic among the symbiotes, generally among superheroes. People like Logan, Spider-Man, Deadpool, they all have great healing factor, so that's not anything different. He also has superhuman stamina, which, harmful areas, toxic gas underwater, you name it. He probably live on the surface of the moon for a while. It is a symbiote, remember, it's not completely human anymore. He also gains genetic memory, which allows him to gain the memory of his hosts. Like whatever host it takes over, whether it be Eddie Brock or not, it then gains the memory. But remember that the host is in complete control, so generally speaking, you think you would have the memory still, so it's not that huge. But it can be forced to forget information if it takes heavy trauma. Like, if you were to go and beat this guy's head in, it won't kill him, but it'll do the same thing. Like, if Logan shoots a bullet into his brain, while that part of the body will heal, it will forget what part of the brain, it damaged. Like, if it was your family, well, now you forgot your family because that part of the brain was damaged, but then, healed after that. Offspring detection, it can detect its offspring. Pretty basic. The ability to wall crawl, just like Spider-Man, so controlling the flux of interatomic attraction between molecular boundary layers. Webbing generation. Unlike Spider-Man, who had to create his webbing, if you're into that one, or the natural webbing, like in the Spider-Man movie trilogy, most of the time he does make his webbing. The symbiote can create its own webbing. We know that with Venom, with Carnage. I will have their stories kind of later on. But yeah, that's another thing. We got the matter generation that it has, which it forms white matter tentacles, and so it can form tentacles in other places other than just his body, but generally they spawn from the body. It is he has immunity to Spider-Man's spider sense. This has been a factor with just basic Venom its entire life. Like, Venom always had the ability to avoid spider sense. We also got spider sense, or ESP, so he can detect stuff happening or about to happen. Like, when someone throws a punch, Spider-Man can generally avoid it, not only because he's fast, but he can sense it. Same goes for Anti-venom. Stretching and deforming, it's pretty basic. He's like, symbiote is kind of like a slime type creature. The camouflage capabilities allow it to camouflage into its surroundings as well as mimic other people. External symbiote rejection. Other symbiotes cannot latch on. Only the white Venom symbiote can latch on, so the basic Venom symbiote can no longer attach. Matter manipulation. He can enlarge his fist, or, kind of like Mr. Fantastic. Mr. Fantastic is a great example of how this is portrayed. Being able to, like, turn your hand into a giant fist, or into, like, an axe without, being sharp, or, just engorge a part of your body. Impurity sense, once again, can detect impurities, which would be a cool ability for, being able to clean up surrounding areas. Like, if you needed to get rid of, like, let's say gamma radiation, or you didn't know that there was some kind of radiation, so then you could literally just go, oh, look, guess what? I know that there's radiation in the area. Now, he also has internal body cleansing, so any disease, any sickness, that'll be gone. He's immune to fire, and he's immune to sonic. So, the weaknesses that Venom were normally weak to, he's no longer weak to. So, that kind of makes him a way more invincible version of Venom. So, because you guys know back in the Spider-Man 3 movie, if you haven't turned back, this is going to be some spoiler alerts. I'll probably have a spoiler alert some point at the beginning of the video before I get talking about it. But in Spider-Man 3, how Spider-Man defeats the Venom symbiote is he uses metal beams and smashes them together to create, sound waves. And then it hurts the symbiote, causing him to, like, get up and spaz out, separating from Eddie Brock. Then he pulls Eddie Brock out, throws a grenade into the Venom symbiote. Then Eddie Brock, being stupid, jumps in and blows up the symbiote. Then, henceforth, ending both their lives. So, yeah, without those weaknesses, the Anti-venom is way better. On to abilities, strength level, and weaknesses. The abilities include the ability to cure a person of afflicted radioactivity, parasites, disease, drugs. So if you're a drug addict, well, guess what? Boom, you're better. If you're a mental patient, if you're ill, boom, you're better. This thing really, really makes a person pretty much super healthy. Like, if you could incorporate this into everyday life, well, holy cowaronies, you could like heal everything. Now, its strength level, it can at least lift 70 tons with his current muscle mass. There is no indication if he can lift more, because we don't know. We know that with certain sizes he can lift more than others. So if he gained, let's say, 1,000 pounds of muscle mass, well then I'm pretty sure that 70 tons will definitely go up. And his weakness is he's weak to a poison made by Norman Osborn using the Freak and Mr. Negative's Dark Force powers. The poison destroys the symbiote for a while, and Mr. Negative's powers halt the symbiote's healing powers until the dark energy is no longer in contact with the symbiote. And then overuse of its healing abilities weakens it to the point where it can potentially be overwhelmed and destroyed by another symbiote. So pretty much it's saying that if you use your healing factors too much, at that point you then are weak to the point where another symbiote could come in, rip apart that one, and take over. So the regular Venom symbiote, the Carnage symbiote, you know, they're all kind of spawns of each other. You then come in and take over. Now, I don't think there's anything else that we really need to talk about. A little bit of information for you guys is that in the game Spider-Man Edge of Time, we get to see Antivenom, a bigger, burlier version of Antivenom than the pictures I have shown you guys in today's video. But it is still Antivenom. Pretty much kills Spider-Man off. It's up to Spider-Man 2099, aka Miguel O'Hara, to then save Peter Parker. So that's a little bit of information for you guys. I hope you guys enjoyed today's lore video. This has been Marvel Maniac. Remember to like, comment, and subscribe for some more comic content, and I will see you guys next time. Peace!